Hey everyone, welcome to this video where I'm going to talk a bit about this announcement from the IMF, a new Bretton Woods moment. So I haven't seen too much coverage. A few people have talked about it. I saw it yesterday. Now how I got alerted to this was I got an email which was this. And even this email wasn't too much fanfare. I subscribed to the IMF newsletter. If you're into economics, it's an interesting source of information. They are the IMF after all. But even this, not too much fanfare. But when I looked at this and I just read it, and I was busy working, I said, "Wow, new Bretton Woods moment. What are they talking about?" And I had a look today, and there was one or two people. Max Kaiser tweeted a little bit about it, obviously warning us about it. So let's have a look, right? So what was Bretton Woods firstly, before I go into this announcement and giving you my views on this announcement and what it means. So Bretton Woods refers to a place, I think it was in New Hampshire in the US. And if you look here, if you're a follower of economics, you will know it was a very famous meeting that took place in 1944. So the war wasn't over, but it was almost over, and it looked like the Allies, and specifically the US, would win. Remember, after World War II, that's when the US really became a superpower. Europe was in disarray. The British Empire had effectively ended during the Second World War. They were bankrupt. England was bankrupt, having fought such a long war, and World War I. There was turmoil in Asia. Japan was bombed, 2 atomic bombs. So a lot of issues around the world. The US didn't have a lot of competition. And so what of macroeconomic policy for that period, a new world emerging post World War II? So this meeting happened, and Roosevelt and Churchill were there at Bretton Woods, and what they effectively agreed, and the only reason I guess the world agreed to this was because the US was in that position of power. They said that the US dollar would be backed by gold. We need a common framework for global trade. So what we'll do is the entire world will just adopt the US dollar. And to make sure that it's all legit, you back the US dollar by gold. Sounds great. I mean, hey, we all trust the US, right? So that was great. It was very good for the US because I'll tell you why. You needed dollars to trade with everybody else, because many countries may not, especially if you're a smaller country, many countries would not accept your currency, right? So I live in South Africa, and the rand was actually a pretty credible currency backed by gold. We were in South Africa the biggest miners of gold, biggest producers of gold for many decades. But if you were just an arbitrary country, your currency may not have been accepted. You needed US dollars to buy food and essentials. How do you get US dollars? You have to trade with the US. You need an agreement with the US. Ever heard of the petrodollar? Well, what that means is if you wanted to buy oil, you needed US dollars as well. Every time there's a trade, there's always a trading fee, a little cut. So all of this was fantastic for the US. So many advantages, which I won't go into and list. So this was the agreement in 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement, famous for anyone who's into economics, right? And you could do a lot of reading up on this. Now, what happened was post World War II, this was great. It worked. It was very good for the US. And then this famous agreement, the Nixon shock, when in 1971 the US effectively broke the promise that, use the US dollar as the global reserve currency, but don't worry, we're going to back it by gold. We won't just print it or anything like that. And if you look at what Nixon said, hope you can hear this.
Jobs and halting inflation. We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world. In the past 7 years, there's been an average of one international monetary crisis every year. Now, who gains from these crises? Not the working man, not the investor, not the real producers of wealth. The gainers are the international money speculators.
Speculators, right? So I mean, it sounds legit. Once again, I mean, why wouldn't I believe a guy that looked like that, right? I mean, look at the hair. So anyway, slick back. But Nixon, to be fair, you've got to look at it from both sides. So I'm going to attempt to do that, right? One of the real reasons, I guess, they couldn't back the dollar by gold anymore is that they were afraid that there would be a run on the dollar. They would run out of gold, okay? They would run out of gold. So if every country said, I've traded with you and you know, here's $1 million, but actually, you know, I want gold for this. You're gonna have to ship me some gold, right? Once we sort out this balance of payments. That's the one reason you could run out of gold. The other reason, which is a concern, and I'll come to it right at the end of the video when I talk about Bitcoin, is the liquidity issue, where if you don't have enough money supply in the economy, a lack of liquidity could pose problems. It won't allow an economy to grow. You learn this in basic macroeconomics, right? Macroeconomics is a favorite subject of mine, and that's fine. Right now, though, we don't have that problem. We've overcorrected the other way in a tremendous direction, right? We really have a lot of liquidity going into equity markets. That's why the stock prices are so high and just, you know, continuously growing higher and higher. The stock market is doing so well, but the actual street isn't. So, you know, Main Street versus Wall Street, as they call it, right? What else did Nixon say here? Let's just have a look quickly.
Based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world.
Okay, so you got that, right? The strength of the dollar should be based on the strength of the economy. Ours is actually, the Americans, the strongest in the world, so don't worry about anything. Just relax and trust me, right? Now, I won't go into this in full. You can watch the video. I'll put that link as well. He actually promised that this was just temporary, and within, I think he said 6 months, we'll put it back onto gold standard. So don't worry, you know, this is just 6 months because of speculators. And liquidity would be the more valid economic reason, right? We'll put it back, relax. That didn't happen, and obviously Nixon got impeached after that, right? And the other guys just, yeah, I mean, he did this, don't look at me. So no backing by gold, liquidity, but in the extreme, and inflation, money printing, and all of that, right? Which brings us to this. So let's have a look at this now. Now they're talking about a new Bretton Woods moment. Well, the 1971 shock is effectively an admission that Bretton Woods failed. Even whether you were a pro 1971 or anti 1971, I guess both sides agreed that Bretton Woods failed to get to this. Now we see this coming out of nowhere, 15th October, very quietly, right? A new Bretton Woods moment. So what does this mean now? Do we need a new macroeconomic policy, global reserve currency, some sort of new standard? They haven't given us all the details. This is almost a teaser video. It's like the IMF's making a movie and this is the movie trailer, right? Could be a horror movie. Let's just see. So there's a few things here, right? And they say a lot of good things. They talk about, they quote Keynes a lot. You'll see this, right? The video starts, if we can continue, the brotherhood of man will have become more than just a phrase. And she goes into that, John Maynard Keynes. And it says here, we face a new Bretton Woods moment. Hope you can read that. It's not too small. And then they talk about the pandemic that's cost lives, bringing this economic calamity that we've had in 2020. And they go into the need for loans, because that's what they do, the IMF, right? They loan money to various countries around the world. It comes with T's and C's. Nothing comes for free. The loans I mean, you could ask yourself, right? This is just money supply entering the global macroeconomic environment. If there's a fixed supply of money in the world, but I say, hey, I can see that you need some cash, so I'm gonna give you $1 billion. Where does it come from? Don't worry. So that's expanding the money supply. There are, to be fair, valid economic reasons for expanding the money supply to a point, but we've overdone it since, I suppose, the 1970s. And if you look at it now, this is where I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, right? But think about it. This pandemic was the perfect I want to say reason, but it was just perfect for what we're seeing now. We have a pandemic at the start of 2020. Every economy collapses. I tweeted, this is a tweet I put out, that's me there, from the IMF, and this was before this Bretton Woods announcement that we saw. So here's all the 2020 projections. They're predicting a rebound in 2021, and in most cases you're not going to undo the damage. And here's Canada dropping by about 7% in 2020, growing maybe about 5% in 2021, right? But every economy gets hit except, here's one, China, the only economy in the world that actually grew 2% in 2020 in spite of all of this. Okay, leave that with you. Number two, so you have this situation where after the 2008 crisis and all these other problems we're having, lots of money printing, we get into negative interest rates, everything's looking shaky. We have now the perfect reason to say, hey guys, and they mentioned it in the video, you will need loans for vaccines. They actually say this, right? You will need loans for vaccines because we had this crisis in 2020, but don't worry, we're not just going to free up new loans. We've got something better, which we haven't announced yet, but it's going to be big. It's going to be a new Bretton Woods moment. So I guess we're all saved, okay? Being a bit sarcastic, but you'll see where I'm going with this, right? I'm going to show you a real life example of how this works, right? In South Africa, July 30th, 2020. Now, South Africa was hit very hard with the lockdowns. So many sectors collapsed, people out of jobs. If you think it's bad in first world countries, just imagine what it's like in developing nations. There's no stimulus, zero stimulus. These developing countries can't afford it, right? I've got people phoning me saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. I haven't earned a salary in 6 months. I've finished my savings. I'm desperate. What the hell can I do? And it's not just one person. People all over the show, right? So South Africa, faced with that, says, okay, and to be fair, there's other reasons why South Africa has problems. But here we go. $4.3 billion. It's a lot of money if you're a developing nation, if you have to pay that back in dollars. Oh, by the way, and your currency is depreciating against the dollar every month. Okay, that makes it even more hard. You could 4 billion might as well be 6 billion, right? So on the 30th of July, $4 billion, and then we see 14th October. This was just the other day, just a few months, tax increases in South Africa. Because who pays for the IMF loan? You're going to pay. You're going to pay in extra taxes, more socialism. That's what happens. You get the liquidity. It's good for some people. I guess it's not good for everyone, right? But hey, you needed that money for vaccines. Just remember that, okay? What else? So we come back to this, the IMF thing. 3 imperatives, right? Firstly, the right economic policies. And I think what the right economic policies mean, and I'm going to bring this back to things like Bitcoin now in a minute. I don't want the video to be too long if you're still here. One size does not fit all. she does talk in the video about a couple of things, like, writing off debt. Well, not writing off debt, bad debt restructure. So they give countries these loans. Countries can't pay. They restructure the debt, increase the payment periods. It's a mixed bag, right? Policies must be for the people. So once again, it sounds great. Health, education, gender equality, climate change was in there, expanding internet access in sub-Saharan Africa. So all that's great, right? I mean, you can't knock any of that. And then the IMF's role and how we're going to do it. Since the pandemic has begun, we've committed over 100 billion. So you cannot knock, you've got to be a little bit neutral here. You cannot knock all the good stuff they're talking about. But what is the impact to the global macroeconomic policy? We know that these loans have increased liquidity over the last few decades, right? And what do I think will happen? So I think there's a couple of things, and there's one or two commentators that have spoken about it already, right? I think we're going to see some kind of central bank digital currency, either a global one central bank digital currency, or one IMF digital currency, who knows, or IMF backing CDBCs for some of the major countries, and the other countries, guess what? You're going to have to use these CDBCs, just like you all used the dollar in 1944. My thing is, I mean, do you even think it's going to be in a blockchain, or is it just in a database based central bank digital currency? We don't know if it's going to be a blockchain. It's not going to be decentralized. It's not. You're not going to have a node in your home confirming transactions for the IMF. It doesn't work like that, right? So what does it mean for Bitcoin? So I think a lot of these big organizations, governments now, are fully aware of Bitcoin, the threat it poses. I would hope that they see the opportunity to work with Bitcoin and use it to their advantage. It's gold 2.0, right? It's looking likely to be gold 2.0. And it could be very good for global macroeconomics, as I've said in many of my videos going back over a year. But I think all the good that they talk of doing here, the dollar as the global currency never helped developing nations. It caused a lot of problems, needing to have dollars. Your foreign trade agreements were dictated to you in many cases, because I needed to get dollars, and okay, comes with certain conditions. Too bad. Okay. So that wasn't good. We needed something neutral. Unfortunately, we couldn't do anything in 1944 at Bretton Woods. We couldn't do anything in 1971, and we couldn't do anything as developing countries. And so now there is something we can do. People just couldn't adopt gold because gold was cumbersome. Gold had other issues, and there's a lot of talk that the gold price was manipulated, right? There was also, swept under the carpet, but go and Google it, some guys from JP Morgan who were fined, that's all I think, for gold price manipulation. Max Kaiser revealed it. He spoke about it. So I think this is a perfect opportunity, a new Bretton Woods. Hey, we see Bitcoin, we've got an idea. We're gonna come up with our own crypto or CBDC. Okay, we're gonna call it a new Bretton Woods moment. It's gonna be bigger and better than ever before, but you're gonna have to use our digital currency because lots of benefits for us, right? I think it won't be just one country like the US. I think it'll be the US and Germany, maybe France, maybe China. Either one currency or four. You don't want this. You want Bitcoin. You know why. I can't give you financial advice, but I think this will still be very good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin gives us the opportunity to say, okay, this is what the decision makers in the world are doing. That's fine. But now, if I want to send you value, and you're sitting halfway across the world, and I don't want anyone to interfere with that It's just between me and you. I can do that with Bitcoin. That is one of the use cases. Check out my video, use cases of Bitcoin, which I did a while back. It's stuff that you probably know, but it was a good recap. And I think that this time, people are not just going to get screwed like in 1944 and 1971. So don't worry, we have Bitcoin now. But I just thought this was interesting, and I thought, let me talk a little bit about it. It's not every day that you get a headline, a new Bretton Woods moment, right? I mean, she even spoke about, she flew to Bretton Woods to look at the trees and relive the spirit of 1944. You should watch the video. She actually says that. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that. I was going to do more macroeconomic videos and how it impacts Bitcoin, or how Bitcoin will impact macroeconomics. It's the other way around. And if you've been waiting, I haven't forgot about Ethereum. The journey that I've been doing since Jan, when I called it the best investment of 2020, still holds true. I was gonna make that video today, but then this came up. Look out for that very soon. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you guys very soon.